Hi everyone, it's YJ. So I want to talk about my ACL journey, not because it's inspirational or anything like that, but because my case was very unique and I realized there's a huge information gap for people going through this. I tore my ACL completely in February 2025 playing basketball, and it's a very classic story. Jump, land, pop, and that's it. Went straight to the hospital. The decision for the ACL reconstruction was that, like most people with a full ACL tear, you're given two options. The first is that you can get a graft from your own body, usually the hamstring or the thigh, and you can also go with a donor graft or an allograft. I chose an allograft because the alternative, taking tissue from a thigh, comes with its own complications, extra pain, slower quad recovery, potential long-term weakness, and honestly, my leg was quite messed up, so I didn't want to have two injuries at once. So I chose donor allograft. Now, on surgery day, I was pretty nervous. It was a day surgery, meaning that I had to wake up at an ungodly hour. It was exactly like you imagine. You show up, you register at the counter, very calm, very hospital. Now, the first important thing I learned here is that in Singapore, if you want to have your payment upfront, you have to request for something called an LOG or a letter of guarantee from your insurance company. I have never been to the hospital for the past 30 years of my life. I have no idea what LOG was, but luckily the auto admin staff helped me to get the LOG and got it approved. Um, so if you're watching this, request the LOG early. It will help you to pay the bills in advance so that you do not need to be concerned about the payment after the surgery or upfront payment at the counter itself. So going on to the surgery itself, they bring you to a waiting room. Then there comes the part where they check your identity. What's your name? What's your IC? Which leg did you have injured? And the anesthetist will explain to you what's going to happen, and then the auto will explain again what's going to happen just before your surgery is done. And then you'll be put under anesthesia, and there will be just darkness for a while. The next thing I remember was that the nurse was calling my name. He was quite aggressively tapping me, like really aggressively, and I woke up with my leg fully bandaged, and ACL reconstruction was done. Now everything here up to this point is a normal way ACL reconstruction should go through. And normally after surgery, you will go to physiotherapy. Physio is basically a very controlled way of relearning movement. At the start, they teach you things like straighten your knee, activating your quads, and making sure that the back of your knee is touching the bed. It sounds simple, but when you have ACL reconstruction, it can be slightly more difficult. And later on, you move on to bikes, resistance, balance work, and so on. In normal circumstances, this process takes a few months before you can return to sports. Now, in my case, this is where things started to go on to be wrong. Um, yeah, so when I got home after surgery, I did what everyone does. I went to bathe, and was randomly spitting phlegm. I noticed that there was blood in it. At first, I thought maybe it's intubation because during surgery, the anesthetist did tell me that they will insert a tube and that can irritate your throat and cause a bit of bleeding. So I waited day one, day two, but on the third day, I felt like it didn't feel right. So I went to the GP to take a look at the condition. Now the first red flag was this. When I was heading to the clinic is right downstairs. It's around a 10-minute walk, but it felt like I think I took 25 to 30 minutes, and I felt like I was running there even though I was on crutches and just doing normal walking, and I was completely out of breath. And I know my body. 1 week earlier, before the injury, I was running at maybe 11:30 for 2.4 kilometer. So for this to feel like sprinting is that's quite a red flag for me. And when I saw the GP, of course they were slightly dismissive, very reasonable because it just looks like throat trauma where they intubate you and they cause a bit of bleeding. But the breathlessness just didn't stand right with me, and so I had a referral which sent me to the X-ray. Now the x-ray showed some fuzziness for the first scan and some sort of small unclear dot in my lungs, and so because they weren't clear what that was, they led me to another x-ray and then eventually a CT scan, and finally they found out that I had PE and DVT. Now PE is a pulmonary embolism, blood clot in the lungs, and DVT is a deep vein thrombosis from the leg, basically kind of like a blood clot in the leg where the surgery had happened. And basically a clot formed in my leg after surgery, and part of it had already traveled to my lungs. And this is where I want to pause and say that this is rare, but it happens. Now the symptoms you should never ignore from this story of mine, and as well as if you have a ACL reconstruction. Firstly is the blood inflamed. Now it could be intubation, but if you experience the next symptom, unusual breathlessness where walking feels like running, and extreme lethargy, which is also what I felt. I felt exhaustion despite doing nothing. Then don't wait and don't self-diagnose. Go for a scan, see a doctor, see whether they can further diagnose for you what is happening, and push for checks, because for me, if I had stopped at the first step to take the x-ray, this might have been a different situation. Now I want to pause here for a moment because this part is important. DVT is not the leg problem. The real danger comes when the blood clot travels. If the blood clot travels to the lungs, it causes pulmonary embolism. To the heart, it can trigger cardiac arrest. To the brain, it can cause a stroke. And the scary part is, it doesn't take many clots. One significant blockage is all it takes for something life-threatening to happen. That's why doctors take DVT and PE so seriously. It's not about discomfort, it's about risk. Now, the follow-up to this. In my case, I was actually quite lucky in a way. The clot was detected relatively early. It wasn't massive, it wasn't catastrophic, and doctors consider a moderate blockage. But here's the thing, moderate risk doesn't mean no risk. It just means that I hadn't reached the worst case scenario yet. So in a way, I'm happy that I survived. But if I had ignored the breathlessness, the symptoms, it might be something worse. To recover from the complications, physio had to stop. I was put on blood thinners. This creates a really difficult balance because on one hand, you need the physio to regain mobility, but on the other hand, breathlessness limits the exertion that I can do during the physio, and blood thinners means bruising easily, healing is slower, and injury is riskier, and so on and so forth. But so recovery becomes slightly slower, and it took me a very long road. I injured myself on February 2025, and now it's February 2026. So this stretched my recovery to a full year, and my knee bending improved very slowly. I was at 90 degrees for a very long time, 110, then slowly 117, and now I'm still at about 120 degrees. Not the full bending that you would expect, but at least it's a decent improvement. And the strange part is, before this, I was perfectly fine, and I was active, I exercised, I had no symptoms or anything major with my health. After this injury, I discovered this whole stack of underlying issues, from the blood clots all the way to the high cholesterol. So this is what I want to say clearly. Prevention is always the first line of defense, especially as you get older. One injury doesn't affect the joint, but it can set off a chain reaction. Surgery, immobility, complications, discoveries you never planned for. So if you're healthy now, protect your knees, strengthen properly. This sounds like something a teacher would say, but rest when something feels wrong. And the final message is, if you are going through ACL surgery, physio, or recovery right now, most people recover normally. Some like me won't. And if you're in the second group, you're not weak or unlucky or doing something wrong, but you should always listen to your body, trust the red flags, and I hope that my experience helped you to maybe diagnose things. Let's say you're unfortunate enough to be something like me. Yeah, thank you for watching my video, and I hope everyone there that's injured recovers fast.